Hello everyone, welcome to our first session of Introduction to Digital Illustration with Adobe Illustrator. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of vector graphics and Adobe Illustrator. So in this class, we will be looking at what exactly are vector graphics, what they look like, what are some commonalities they have, and how they are built and made. And then we will briefly introduce Adobe Illustrator, the interface, and some tools and techniques that I find helpful. Afterwards, I hope we can build some simple graphics and illustrations together. All right, let's get started. So before we get started talking about the technical aspects of vector graphics, let's first take a look at what vector graphics and vector illustrations look like. So I have just went to Google and searched for vector illustrations and pulled up some images. So first off, we can already tell that there's sort of a common look and feel across all these images. There is a use of flat color, a lot of really well-defined shapes, very clean and constructed. So if we take a look at vector graphics in Pinterest, we can sort of get a sense of where vector illustrations really shine. In general, we often use them for simple graphics like logos or spot illustrations or little icons that you can use throughout, say, a publication or a design, as you can see here. You can use vector illustrations, though, to make more complicated images, as you can see as we enter into Behance. Some of the illustrations you can make are much more complex, much more complicated, and can be interesting to look at. But you'll notice that some of the commonalities are that it still uses a lot of flat color, flat spaces, and again, everything's just very well defined and very well constructed. You can really see how vector graphics can create very well constructed illustrations. In this illustration, you can see how the mounds of dirt are very simple pyramids. The trees themselves are expressed as ovals, and you can also see how all the lines are almost of a uniform weight throughout the image, which lends to a very unified, clean, graphic, and bold look. So what exactly is a vector image, and how is it made and how it's defined? So let's pop over into Adobe Illustrator and just take a quick look at how the program represents vector objects and vector graphics. So let's take a look at this square right up here in the corner. I'm just going to click on it, and then we can kind of see how this object is defined. We can see that it starts at the point 0, 0. So 0, 0 is the top of the page right here. And then it is a square that's 255 pixels wide and 200 pixels tall. You can think of a vector illustration or a vector graphic being built of shapes, and each of those shapes is defined by points. So in this graphic I grabbed from Wikipedia, you can sort of imagine a shape in a vector program as being defined by points, and these points have a location, such as here at X and Y, and all those points are connected by a line, so a path. So we can kind of see how this is also expressed in a circle. So I'll just click on the circle. You can see how the circle is made up of little points, and these points have little handlebars which sort of defines the curvature of the object. So making a lot of these little objects and putting them together, we can create a vector illustration. So because vector illustrations are built out of shapes that are defined by single coordinates, they're actually not dependent on resolution. So unlike a pixel image or a raster image like this photograph right here, if we zoom in onto it, you can sort of see how in a pixel image, you can start seeing the individual pixels become more and more apparent as we zoom in or as we blow the image up. However, with a vector graphic, because it is only defined by points and a path connecting those points, and really it's defined by math, you can see how it stays clean and crisp even as we zoom in closer and closer into the line. And this also works if we blow the shape up to the size of, say, a billboard. A vector graphic will not lose its crisp and clean form. You'll notice that when you use a font and say in your word processing document and how you can make it into as many different sizes as you want, your type is actually expressed in a way very similar to a vector graphic. So here we have an A, and then you can see that this A is actually also made out of individual points, handlebars which define the curve, and paths that connect it all to create a letter form. So a font is actually just a file of shapes that represent letters. which is why you can see them at many different sizes, from a billboard to a business card. So what are some advantages of using vector graphics and creating illustrations in a program like Adobe Illustrator? So first off, you get a lot of control, and you can edit your illustration quite easily. The program and vector graphics also lets you create very clean shapes and also geometric shapes. You can create flat colors, and also you can use a program to make subtle gradients or simple gradients. It also allows you to make very consistent uniform line work throughout your illustration. And it is also great for scalability. So you can make something as small as you want, almost microscopic, or you can make it as big as you want, as in a billboard or even bigger. So what are some disadvantages of using vector graphics, and when should you not use them? So creating vector graphic illustrations, you would probably have a very hard time creating naturalistic illustrations and complicated blendings, say in a painting. And also, when you add images and raster image into Adobe Illustrator file, it might slow down your file quite a bit, and makes your file size quite a bit larger. All right, so let's start taking a look at the Adobe Illustrator workspace. So in this class, I'll be talking about Adobe Illustrator on a desktop rather than on the iPad, but hopefully you'll learn the techniques and some tricks that you can apply if you choose to use the iPad or tablet version. So I won't go over every function, tool, or panel, but only the ones we'll use today. Hopefully these tools will allow you to start creating your first vector illustrations. You should definitely try out some of the sample tutorials that come with Illustrator. So right in this Learn tablet right here. They're very thorough, they have accompanying work files, and the first 4 videos really go well into what we're going to talk today if you would like some more information. All right, so let's start looking at the overall interface of Adobe Illustrator. So first off, we're going to start creating a new file. So right in the home screen, we'll just hit Create New. And we can use any size that we want. Because Adobe Illustrator isn't resolution dependent, you can start with a basic size. I generally use either 19 by 20 by 1080 screen if I'm working digitally and I'm making something for the web, or if I'm making something for print, often I'll just start with an 8.5 by 11 document right here, which is a letter size piece of paper. So up here you can see that they have a bunch of different default values. So under web, we can just choose a 1920 by 1080, but you can choose whatever you like, and everything else we don't have to worry about. So let's hit Create. All right, so now we've created a 1920 by 1080 pixel file, and now we can take a look at the overall workspace of Adobe Illustrator. So at the top, we have our menu bar, and this has all the operations like open, save, cut and copy, operations that relate to objects that you put on your artboard, some type options, and some view options as well, like zooming in and zooming out, seeing artboards and your grids and guides. And also, you can access all the panels that you don't see later under Windows. So we'll get into all of these a little bit more specifically later on, but we'll just take another overall look at the other aspects of the interface. So here we have our toolbar. So all the tools on here, of which there are many and many that we won't use, and nor do I use often, you can use these to draw shapes on your board, and use it to select objects, move them around. So anything that you want to put on your board or adjust, oftentimes you'll be using items from your toolbar right here. To our right, we have our panels, and all these icons contain little panels which allow you to edit either your artboard, your layer, or the objects themselves. So with layers, you can make multiple layers, for instance, or if you want to change, say, the color of an object, you can put it in here. You'd find it in the swatches panel, and then if you want to put type and you want to change the typeface, you would do it in the panel here. So if you don't see any of the panels, you'll find them under Window, and they'll be all under here. Again, I don't use all of them, but there are some that I use more often than others. And then if you want, you can take these ones, you can pull them out, you can move them on your bar, and just rearrange things if you like. Otherwise, if you want to just use a very simple workspace, I suggest using Essentials Classic, and that will be able to give you a simple interface that you can start working with. So in this class, we'll be looking at the selection tool, the direct selection tool. We'll also be looking at the shape tools right here and the various ones underneath. We'll also look at the fill color and stroke color, and we'll also look at the align panel, transform tools, and the shape builder tool. So don't worry if this all seems like a lot right now. You'll become better acquainted with all these items as you start to use them and as they start to become part of your Adobe Illustrator vector graphic illustration process. All right, so before we begin, let's just take a look at the vector graphics and sort of overall terminology that I'll be using in our demo. So first off, we can look at our overall working space, which is pretty much everything in our window here. So this is your workspace, including the gray. In the white, this is your artboard. So this is the actual 1920 by 1080 artboard that we'll be working within. And when we export it, this is the only thing that will be exported. Like this is where our image will be. So let's put an object on our artboard. So an object is anything you put onto your artboard. So it can be the circle that we did, it can be any other shape or line or even text, such as the one right here. So right now we'll just look at the object that we put down. So I'm going to use my direct select tool and select it. And this will select the shape in its entirety. And the shape is surrounded by what we call a bounding box. And the bounding box has these hollow squares at the corners and at the sides, and we can call these the handles. So there are multiple things in Adobe Illustrator that are called handles, but I'll just call these ones the bounding box handles. And then you can use these ones to either make your object bigger, smaller, and you can just use it to distort the shape if you want to make it a little thinner, or if you want to make it look a little wider. But if you want to keep it in proportion, which I suggest you always do, remember to hold Shift as you pull and drag the object. So now let's look at the individual points of an object. So if I click on the direct select tool right up here, you'll note after selecting an object. So if I click on the object here with the direct select tool, you just see the bounding box. But if I click on the direct select tool, even if I don't have it selected, and I click on it, you'll see the points that make up this object. So you can kind of see that there are 4 points at the top and bottom, left and right of the object. So these are what we call anchor points of an object. And you can select these individual anchor points by using your direct select tool. So again, this white tool up here. And then you can draw a marquee box over it, and then you'll see that the point then becomes highlighted in blue. And then these points, because it's a circle, they have these handlebars right here, and then these help define the curvature. You can use the direct select tool again to select individual points, and after you have them selected, you can actually move them around using your direct select tool as well. So just select it and then just move it, and you can also use it to move your individual handlebars as well, just like that. If you do something that you don't like, don't worry, you can always go into edit and just go Control-Z, or just use the shortcut keys of Control-Z, just like that. All right. So we have our anchor points and we have our handlebars, and the thing in the middle that connects the anchor points is a path. So you can kind of see, you can also use your direct select tool to sort of drag the path anywhere that you like. I often don't use that. I usually just adjust the anchor points itself. After you've done playing around and adjusting an object, just remember to click off of the object anywhere on the artboard to just deselect your object so you don't end up affecting it later on. All right, so now let's start making something. Try to follow along and pause and rewind if you need to. You can also find the written instructions for this tutorial on my blog post link in the video's description box. All right, so let's start with making some simple illustrations. So in this demo, we're going to make a little speech bubble. We'll make a heart afterwards, and then we'll just make this place icon that we see here. So before we get started, let's just remember to turn on Smart Guides. So right up here, Control U, and then you'll be able to see that way when you select an object and you hover over certain areas, you can see that it'll highlight with some red text that says path or anchor point or other areas such as the center of an object and all that. So this will be really helpful as you create your object. So again, just go to View and click on Smart Guides and make sure this little blue box is turned on with a check mark inside. All right, so I'm just going to take everything and I'm just going to delete off my board. And here is where you can start following along. So let's start off with making the speech bubble. So the tool that we'll be using is the shape tool here, and we'll also be using the shape builder tool down here. So with the shape tool, if I hover over it, you'll see that it says it's the ellipse tool. If you don't see the ellipse tool, you might have another shape revealed. So most likely it'll be the rectangle tool, or maybe it'll be the polygon tool. So if you don't see the ellipse tool, just click and hold on the icon and it should reveal other shape tools underneath. And then afterwards, just select the ellipse tool. So before we start putting anything on the board, let's take a look at the colors of our object. So we can set those right now. So our fill color for this object, I have it right now, it'll be blue without an outline. But if you want to change it, you can just double click on the box here and then you can select whatever color you like. So we can go with a lighter blue and then hit OK. And then we can also change the color of our stroke. So again, we can just double click on it right here, or we can even go to swatches, click on this one. And if you don't see swatches, just go into the window and scroll down until you see swatches. And if it's revealed, they'll have the little blue box with the check mark inside. And then let's just make the outside black. So the stroke color, let's make that black. All right, so now that we've selected that, let's draw our speech bubble or our first ellipse. So first we'll click on the ellipse tool and we'll make sure it's highlighted in a darker color. And then we're just gonna click and drag. We don't have to hold any key or anything. So we'll just click and drag a speech bubble shape that we think will look good as a speech bubble. So yeah, now we've drawn an oval and you can see here it has a blue inside and also has a dark outline. So now let us make a triangle. So we'll click on this one and then you'll see that there's no triangle tool, but a triangle is a type of polygon. So we'll select the polygon tool. So we'll select that one. And then anywhere else on our board, we will draw that polygon tool. And you might have a shape like a pentagram or a hexagon. So if you have more sides than a triangle, you might have to click down. So let's just do that again. So I will click on the polygon tool, and then I will draw a shape. And if it's by clicking and dragging, so now I'm clicking and dragging, and if you see that there's not enough shapes, just click on the down arrow and that will reduce the amount of sides that you have. So here you can see that I have now 3 sides. So after I get that, then I can release and then I'll have made myself a triangle. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to put these shapes together. So what we're going to use is the selection tool up at the top left corner right here. So just click on that one. And then we'll just click on our shape tool. So just click anywhere on the shape right here, and you can then just click and drag it and move it around. So now, if you want, you can rotate the object by hovering over the corners, and you'll get this little sort of arc at the corner, which says that you can rotate it. So we can just rotate it like that, and then we can just put it, and then we can also make it a little bit smaller by squishing it down, and then you can even adjust the proportions too by making it longer or shorter, just like that. And then yeah, let's rotate it, and then just drag it on top of our speech bubble of our first oval, and then we can just adjust the shape like right there, and then sort of adjust accordingly. And if you want, you can even make it a little wider again and just adjust. So yeah, we'll want to have something like that. All right, now maybe what we'll want to do is we want to combine our shapes. So now we're going to go to our toolbar again, and we're going to select on the shape builder tool, which I like to say looks like a upside, sort of a snowman tipped on its side. So we'll just click on that one. And then actually, before we do that, we need to select all the objects that we want our shape builder tool to use. So we'll click on our selection tool again. And then we're just going to draw a marquee by clicking and dragging over all of our objects like that. What you can also do is that you can click on one object, hold shift, and then select another object, just as you would select multiple files in your Finder window. So after you've selected your objects, now you want to click on the shape builder tool, which again looks like a tipped over snowman. And then we'll just click on that one, and then you'll see that you'll have the tool. And then as we hover over the shapes, you can see that it'll highlight the sort of intersected areas. So what we want to do is we want to combine all the shapes. So what we'll do is we'll click and hold our mouse, and then you can see that you're drawing a line. And then what we want to do is we want this line to connect all the shapes, to go through all the shapes we want to connect. So right now I'm drawing a line through the circle and the triangle to connect everything together, and then I'll release when I have everything together, and then you'll see that I have now made a speech bubble. All right, so let's look at just how we can edit the shape. So let's use our our selection tool right now, and we'll just select on the shape itself. And now we're going to look at our maybe changing the fill color, the stroke color, and the weight. So let's start with changing the stroke color, the fill color. So if we click in here, you can see that you can change the color by sliding using the sliders and just selecting a color that you like. So we can change it green now, and then we can also change the stroke color if we like. So if we double click there, we can also change it here. So we can change it to a nice blue. Yeah, and then now once we selected it, we can also change the stroke. So you can go to the stroke panel. So just go into Windows and Stroke right here, and you'll see that it's this icon right here. Or it'll pop out a panel just like this on your workspace. So with your object selected, you can increase the line weight of it. So if I just click up, you can see that you can make it quite a bit bigger. And there's actually other options under here too. So if you see the menu bar in the top right corner of this panel, if you click on it, and you'll have a show options. And then here you have a lot of different options. So here you can see that our speech bubble had very sharp corners. You can actually make those soft by right here. You can click on the soft one, and that'll soften your corners, or you can keep them sharp if you like. And then you can align stroke to either the inside or the outside, but generally I leave it on the in the center. What you can also do is you can even click on it as a dashed line, and then you can make yourself a sort of whisper bubble, just like that. You'll just have to play around with the objects right here, and then you can make a sort of whisper bubble, just like that. All right, so now let's make a heart. So this approach is just one way to make a heart. There's many other ways. but let's try to make a heart out of geometric shapes. So we are first going to start by drawing the top of the heart, so with an ellipse tool. So we're just going to select our ellipse tool, and this time we're going to set our fill and stroke color in our swatches panel. So if you don't see a swatches panel in your panels right to your right, just go to Windows and open up swatches. And then you'll see you should have some default swatches. So I'm just going to choose pink, which is this one, and then I'm also going to choose a dark navy stroke color. So first we will start drawing a circle. So we're going to lay down a circle, and we're going to hold shift to make sure that stays as a perfect circle, just like that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to draw a square around the circle. So I will just draw a square, hold shift of any size. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move it to the top left of the circle. And then I'm just going to drag the box holding shift to just fit it so it snaps to the circle right there, just like that. So, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the square to the center of the circle right here. So I'll just take it like that, and then you'll see with the smart guides on, it'll tell you exactly where it is. So now I'm going to select my circle with my direct selection tool right here, and I'm just going to copy it and then paste it. So Control C, Control V. And now I'm going to align my heart so that the middle of it is on the top of the square. So just drag it, and then the smart guide should kind of show that right now it's in the middle of the box, and I'm just going to drag it down, and now it intersects. Perfect. So now you can see that most of the shape is actually built. So what we need to do is we need to select all the shapes. So we'll use our selection tool. It will drag a marquee over everything. And then now we're going to use our shape builder tool again, and then we're just going to click and drag a line through all the shapes so we can connect it all, just like that. And then there we have a sort of heart on its side. So lastly, what we need to do is that we need to turn it. So we're just going to click back on our selection tool. We'll hover around the bounding box handlebars, the corners, so that we get a little turning arc. We're going to click and drag, and then we're also going to hold shift, and then that will constrain the turning to 45 and 90 degrees, and then we'll just turn it upright. And then there we have a heart. All right. And now if we want to change it, the fill and stroke again, we can do that from our swatches panel or from anything else here. For instance, maybe we don't want it to have a stroke. We'll just click on this none, this fill right here, and then that'll just get rid of our stroke, and then we'll just have a nice fill color of pink. All right, so now we're going to make a simple place icon, just as we see here. So how we're going to make it is we're going to first start off with drawing a circle. So we're going to draw a circle, just like that. Hold shift just to make sure it's a perfect circle. And we are going to then adjust the shape using the direct select tool right up here. So the white selection tool. So again, what the white selection tool does is that it allows you to select individual points, anchor points on the shape. So after we've selected our circle, and after we've drawn it and it's selected and you can tell with the bounding box, you can then click on the direct select tool and it'll just reveal the points. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a marquee box over the lower point of the ellipse. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click shift down or just down. Shift down just makes it go down a little bit faster. And then just to sort of extend the shape. So we'll just go around there. And then from here, we want to make it into a sharp point. Now the handlebars are what creates a curvature of the line right there. So what we want to do is we want to just make it so that it does not create curvature on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the handle, and we're just going to pull it in on top of the point, and we're going to do that with both sides. So now we see that we have a sharp point. However, you can see that the transition between this point to the point now looks a little bit not smooth enough for the place icon. So what we're going to do is, again, we keep using our direct select tool, and now we're going to pull down the handle. So we want to pull it straight down. What you can do is you can hold the shift key to just pull it down to constrain it to either go up and down, right across, or at a 45-degree angle. But yeah, we just want to bring it down just like that. And then we want to do the same on the other side. You can eyeball it if you like and adjust it. As you can see here, we probably just want it like that. And now we have sort of the outer shape of our place icon. Now what we want to do is we want to just draw that circle that goes right inside. So we'll just click on the ellipse tool again, and we're just going to draw a circle out. And remember to hold shift. And then we're just going to drag it on top right here. As you can see with smart guides on, you can see that it'll align it to the center for you. But another way to align objects is to use the align panel, as we can see here in this icon, or in the Windows align. So just go to Windows align, and it'll pop out a panel that shows how you can align objects. So if I have my circle right here, separate, and I want to align it in the center of the outside placemaker icon, what I'll have to do is I'll select both of the shapes. So I'll just take my selection tool and I'll just put a marquee over the shapes I want, or just a portion of. So in this time, I'm just gonna do a marquee over just a section of the circle, just like that. And then now what I can do is that I can align it to the center. So having our align panel open, you can see how you can align the objects together. So you can align it to the left, you can align it to the right, to the top, but what we want is we want to align it to the center, and we can also align it to the center as well, but you'll notice that the center of the map icon isn't quite the center of where we want to put our dots. So what we can do after we've centered it, both icons, is that we will deselect all the objects. So just click on anywhere off the object, so anywhere on the artboard or the working space, and then we'll just reselect the center, just like that. And then we can just click shift up to just move it optically to where we would like it. So just right there. All right, so now we can play around with the fill color and everything. So I want to make the inside circle to be a fill color. So we can just like either flip it around just like that, and then just remove the stroke color right there, so we can just see the full circle. Or we can go into our swatches panel again, and we can just change it to, say, black, or actually any color that you would like. But let's just keep the colors consistent. So, and then for our outside, if you want to change that, you can change the outside stroke. So right here, you can click on this one, or in our swatches panel. So just make sure that the stroke one is outside, and then you can click that to be black too. And then maybe on the inside, you don't want it to be gray, but maybe you want it to be white or transparent, which you can't tell the difference because the background is white. But yeah, if you want it white or a light gray, then you can have it like that. So there you have your place icon. But the thing is, these are actually two different shapes right now. So what you'd want to do is you actually want to group these shapes together. So we'll just go select the shapes we all want in a group. So drag a marquee over the whole object, and then we're just going to go into object and then group. And you can see that the shortcut key is Control-G. And then now, if we ever use our selection tool and just click on the object, then we'll move them all together. If you double click on it, then you'll enter an isolation group where you can just sort of move the groups individually because you're now inside the group. We don't want to do that, so I'll just hit Control-Z. And if you ever find yourself in this group, in the isolation group, and you don't want to be inside, just double click anywhere off the shape, just like that. Or you can also hit escape, and that'll get you out of it too. All right. That concludes the short little ways we can create icons in Adobe Illustrator. With all the tools and the techniques that we just used to create the speech bubble, the heart, and the place icon, we should be able to make a simple illustration like this geometric face we see here. So how should we go about making this face? I'll just quickly walk you through how I would construct this face, and hopefully you can do the same. So I'm just going to move this image off to the side, off of our artboard and into the working space, so into the gray, just to use as a reference. All right, so let's first start off just drawing the ears. The ears, it seems, they are made up of 2 circles, and one for the outer color and one for the shading of the inside of the ear. So let's just start with drawing a circle, just like that, and we'll hold Shift. And then we can then draw and then choose a color in our swatches panel. This time I'll just use, let's use purple this time. And then we'll draw another circle. Again, hold Shift to be the inside of the ear. So I'll choose a little dark gray, maybe a little lighter for some contrast, just like that. And then we just want to align it in the center. So right there. Or we can just select both of them, and we just can go into our align panel right here and just align it to the center and then to the center. And then if we find that we want it to be a little smaller, a little trick that we can use is we can shrink things from the center by holding down the Alt key. So if we hold Alt, you can shrink it from the center, and then just that gives you a little bit more control over how you adjust it. So after we made this ear, we just want to group it together. So Object and Group. And we're just going to also shrink that down. So remember to hold Shift to keep everything in proportion. And we'll just make it a little bit smaller. And then if we want to, and then we also want to group these together. So Object and Group. So Object, Group. So we can see that they're already grouped. And if we want, we can just copy and paste it. And paste. And then with these two, we can also just align it to the top or the center, but they're the same thing. So that'll, all right, so now that we've made the ears, we should start making on the overall face shape. So I'm going to shrink down the ears just a little bit because they seem a little bit big, just about there. And then I'm just going to make a overall face shape. So now I'm just going to move the second ear a little bit across. I'm going to hold Shift, just drag it across the artboard, and then I'm just going to draw a larger face shape. So, right about there. And then I'm going to give the fill color the same fill color as as the ears right there. Another tip that you can use, so if it's a different color, you can use this eyedropper tool right here. And what this will do is it'll take on the properties of whatever object that you're clicking on. So if I click on if I have this face object selected and I want to change it to the color of the ear on the outside, I'll just click on my eyedropper tool, having this object selected, and then I will just click on the color that I want it to take. So it can take on the exact same color of the outer ear color. So then after that, I will select that, and then I am going to just click off of the shape, and then I'm just going to move the ears in place. So actually, what I can also do is I can just move one of the ears in place. So maybe I want it just in the center. So I'll just select both of these objects, and then I'm going to align it to the center of its vertical, just like that, and then drag it. And then I'm also just going to drag this center of the ear to meet the anchor point here. So what I'm going to do is just select it. I'm going to hold Shift just to move it straight across and then have it match up. If you want to zoom in, you can go in Control Zoom in here, and the shortcut key is Control plus and Control minus, just like that. So with this ear now, what I want to do is I want to copy it on the other side of the face. So what I can do is I can just copy it. So Object, Copy, or Control-C. And then I can paste it. And then I can just align it with, I can do the same thing and just align it to the center of the face. And then from here, I can move it onto the anchor point just the same. So here you can see that the ear is on top of it. So what we want to do is we want to move it behind of the face. So we can just have this selected, and we just go Object, and we'll arrange, and we'll just send it to the back, just like that. And then now we have our face. So now what we can do is we can select, and we can just group this all together. And then now when we click off of it and reselect it, it'll just all move together as one object. All right, so now let's just make the nose. So the nose, as you can see, is sort of like our map icon, but flipped upside down. So what we can do now is we can click on our shape tool, so the circle, draw a circle, remember to hold Shift again. And again, it can be as large or small as you want. It doesn't really matter because we can always resize it. And then we'll just adjust the shape now. So now we will take the qualities of the inner ear. So using the eyedropper tool and just clicking on the inside ear like that. And what we want to do now is we just want to adjust the shape. So we will just get our direct select tool, so our white tool right there, and we're just going to draw a marquee over the top anchor point of the circle. So if we click on it, we can see that we have all our anchor points here. And what we want to do is draw a top marquee box over the top point, and then we'll just hit Shift, and then we'll just move it up quite a bit, just like that. And then afterwards, you just want to get rid of that curvature, and we just want to move that on top of the anchor point, just like that. And there we have a nose. So if we put this on top of the face, so we can center it in, just select everything and just center it. So if it's off center and then select it and center it, then we'll see that center. And then you can kind of see that it's a little bit big for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink it down and make it a little cuter. And then I'm just going to, so to shrink it down in the center, you can just shrink from by stretching it from the middle bounding box handlebar, and then I'm just holding Shift and I'm just shrinking it down, and then now it can center it with the face too. So just like that, and you can see that's a little bit high up. So I'm just gonna hold Shift and move it down, or just nudge it up and down just with the arrow keys and the Shift key. All right. So now let's make some eyes. So the eyes are a lot like the place icon too, but what we're going to do is we're going to make both sides of the circle sharp. And then we'll make one eye with two circles with the pupil and the iris, and then we'll copy it over and then put them on the face. So first, to make the eye, let's make the eye gray on the outside first, so that way we can just see where we're working. So I'm just going to drag a shape, a long eye, just like this, like a longer ellipse. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a marquee over the left and right bounding boxes, and then we're just going to turn, and then we're just going to make those sharp, just like this, and just like that. And we're going to do that on the other side, right there. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a circle. So hold Shift because we want it to be a perfect circle. And then now we can choose to have a fill color. So maybe this time it can be the pink color as well. That's a little bit strange, but we'll keep it as is. And then what we can also do is now we can draw a smaller circle, holding Shift to be the center of the eye. So just drag that on top, and then we can make it a little bit bigger, holding Shift again, just to give it a more friendly look. So again, now we can select everything using our selection tool, drag a marquee over everything, go into the Align panel, and then we'll just center it on the vertical, and we'll also center it on the horizontal like that. And then we'll notice that the spacing between the outside of the eye, it makes it look a little bit more threatening. So we'll just select the inner two eyes, and we'll make that a little bit bigger. And then maybe we'll even make this a little bit bigger too, to just give it a friendlier look. And then we'll just try to center everything again. And then there we have a little friendlier eye. And if you like, you can even make another circle, just like that. And then you can create a little bit of a highlight. So we'll just make a small circle. Then we will make it white, and then we'll have a nice little highlight. And then we'll just put it right in the corner, just like that. And then now we'll take everything with our selection tool, draw a marquee over everything, and then we're just going to group it. All right, so now we can see that our eye is much too big. So we will just use our corner handle of the bounding box, and we'll shrink it a little smaller. Maybe just like that. And then what we can do is we'll just copy, and then we'll paste it, and then kind of move that in place. So kind of move it with the eye, and then we'll just move it right across, just like that. And then now we have our eyes and our nose. So the last thing we have to do is the mouth. Just kind of refit everything to just be a little bit more cute, just like that. And yeah, let's start making the mouth. All right, so now let's start drawing our mouth. And the mouth takes a little bit more creativity, but you can still see that it's made out of two simple ovals and that are overlapping. So first we're just going to go to our ellipse tool, and we're just going to draw a oval. And we can adjust it how we want a little bit later, but just a simple oval is fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sort of adjust it just like the map icon and the sharp point, but instead of moving up this time, we're going to move it down. So we're going to use our direct select tool here, and then we're going to drag a marquee over the top box, and then we're going to just move it downwards. So we can just nudge it down with the arrow key, and then we can hold shift and then click down to just make it go faster. So yeah, just a little bit of a smile, just maybe like that. And if we want, we can even move the bottom point by just clicking and dragging a marquee over the bottom. And then you can click that down a little bit here. And then now what we need to do is we need to add the teeth in. So let's just take a circle, and then we'll just draw a shape over there. So this sort of covers up our mouth shape. So we can't really get a good idea of what it's going to look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the fill color and the stroke color so I can just see it a little bit more clearly. So I'm going to open up my swatches panel. So just click on swatches here, or again, if you don't see the swatches panel, just go into window in your menu bar and just go to swatches. And I'm going to get rid of the fill color, and I'm going to give the stroke color just a black so I can just visualize where it is. So I want the mouth to have a little bit more of a curve. This looks a little flat, so I'm just going to shrink it down and then just eyeball it and move it to the center, and maybe just a little bit more like that. And if you want, we can even make a little bit of a tongue for the bottom, just like that. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure this is in the exact center. So I'm just going to select everything, and I'm just going to use my align panel again, and then center it just like that. So now you can see that they are nicely aligned. So now what we can do is we can isolate the shapes from all that are being formed by the intersection of the shapes. So this is where we'll want to use the shape builder tool. So the shape builder tool again is the sideways snowman in your toolbar. And then, but before we click on that one, we have to select all the shapes that we want to tell the computer what to work with first. So we're just going to select all the shapes, and then we're going to click on the shape builder tool. All right, so now we want to turn, we just want to isolate the teeth, the mouth, and the tongue. So here what we can do is actually we can select a color that we want to fill it with as we isolate it to just give us a clear idea. And then we'll just click on the maybe a lighter pink for the tongue. And then we'll keep this shape as gray, but we probably want the teeth to be a nice gleaming white, just like that. And then now what we want to do is we just want to get rid of these outside shapes right here. So we don't need to click on anything here, but we just want to delete them. So to delete them, we'll have to select them and delete them from there. So I'm going to click on the selection tool and just click off on the artboard right here. And then I'm just going to click on the actual object right here. And you can see, because there's no fill right here, that if I click inside, it doesn't get selected. So I have to click on the outside, or I can just draw a marquee over the path. And then from there, you can see that's only selecting the top part because the bounding box only ends there, and I can delete it. And then I can also do the same thing on the bottom. And then from here, I can just group all of these groups together. So I'm just going to grab all of these, and then I'm going to go Object, Group. And then also, I don't want to have this black outline. So when I have the group selected, you can see that there's a question mark here, which just means that there's multiple fill colors or multiple stroke colors. And I'm just going to get rid of the stroke colors just right here. And then that should just get rid of the stroke colors. And then maybe I'll have to do that on the swatches panel, just like that, rather than in here. And then from there, we can just move it in, just like that. So to polish the illustration, because we just sort of moved everything in, we just want to make sure that everything is nice and centered. So even though the mouth, we move it in, it could be close to optically centered. We want to make sure that it's exactly centered. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the mouth, and we're going to select the face shape with the ears grouped together. And we might as well just select the nose first. We're not going to, and you could try selecting with the eyes as well to center it all. And then after you selected everything, you could also have just drawn a marquee over everything and then just select everything here. And then you just want to click the center align on the horizontal. And then now you see, because our eyes are actually not grouped together, now we've just made ourselves a little cyclops. So we don't want that. So we'll just move them back in place. But now we can see, at least know that our mouth and our nose are perfectly aligned. And also, we can also use that to just adjust it. So I'm just going to move it up a little bit more to just make it look a little friendlier. And then with the eyes now, what we want to do is we want to align the eyes perfectly inside the face. So what we should do now is just sort of adjust it to where we see that where they should look on the face. And then now to group them in the center of the face perfectly, we actually need to group the eyes together so that they're read as sort of one main object. So we'll select both of the eyes. So this time we won't be able to draw a marquee over it without selecting the face. So what we'll need to do is we'll have to hold Shift and select both of those objects, and then we can group them. Now that they're grouped, just like with the face shape, with the ears, and now the eyes, and now the mouth are all grouped together, now we can select it all, and then we can center it. And then now you can see that it just shifted ever so slightly. And now everything is perfectly in the center. And now you can just move things up and down to just sort of finesse and make it look quite nice. And then if you want to, you can resize it. So if you just click on the handlebar in the center of the bounding box, you can adjust it from the center. And then maybe if you want to make it really big smile, you can make it really big. Or if you want to make it just a little cute petite smile, you can also go like that. So here we have a little nice face. And afterwards you've finished all that, remember to group it all together, because now it exists as one shape. Just go Group, and then you can click off of it, and now you can just, when you ever do select it again, you can just move it all together. Another little tip you can do for fun is that you can even add some hair. I'll just drag a little bit of a oval, just like that, and then I'm going to select my shape builder tool, and then I'll just click on this one. Then I'll click off of the shape. So I like to always just click on the direct select tool and click off of it, and now we have a little hair. Excellent. So hopefully you found that helpful, and then you can use the sort of same strategy to make your own simple illustration. So after you've worked on your file for a bit and you're ready to save, remember to save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. So you can choose save if it's your first time saving, or if you want to save it as a new file name, just click save as. And then you can save it to anywhere on your computer or even in Adobe Cloud Documents, but I generally like to save on my computer. And then you can name it whatever you want. And then you just hit save. And then we're just gonna keep with the most recent version and with the default values right here. And then we'll hit OK. All right, so now that we saved it, if we close it, we shouldn't get any dialog boxes. And if we want to reopen file, we'll see that we have all the file, all the layers, and all the elements ready for us to go again. So you can see that all our information is in the file and nothing has changed. So now that you have an idea of how to build vector graphics out of simple shapes, try making your own. It may be easier to visualize first through a pencil sketch, or you can start just building it on the computer and seeing what you come up with. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or comments.